Well, hello again. I'm back at the workbench in the model railroad layout area here in the basement. I had recently got my hands on this 85-foot flat car, which I had the idea of putting some military vehicles on it. And having gotten my hands on it, I realized it isn't quite as simple as what we think. But first things first, I had to take a look at this and see what we need for weight on this particular car. Grab onto our handy gauging equipment here, and we can see that this flat car, it's an 85-foot one. It comes in at around not quite 12 inches in total length, including the couplers. And if you're not familiar, the NMRA has a standard. You see I've written it on the back here. The recommended practice 20-1. You should rail cars should weigh 1 ounce plus a half ounce for every inch of length. So this particular car, in theory, it would be best, given that it's about 12 inches long, 1 ounce plus half ounce per every one of those inches comes up with 7 ounces would be a good weight for this car. And if we put it on our handy dandy kitchen scale, we see that it only comes in at, I don't know if you can see that, it's about 2.9 ounces. So it's certainly well underweight and needs a load to be on it. And I'll leave that on there actually. And something I found, in this case on Etsy, but I also know this particular vendor also sells on eBay as well, I think. And I found these military vehicles. They are Marine Corps light armored vehicles. I think they're called LAVs. I was in the Marine Corps now almost 40 years ago. We didn't have these things when I was there, but I thought they are actually quite nice. They're 3D printed, and I kind of expected them to come in kind of rough, needing a little buffing up and some paint. But it's actually already taken care of. The turrets even move. Turrets can actually come away. And anyway, I think they're quite nice. I was quite pleased. I ordered up a couple of them before going whole hog and getting more. This is the person that sells these creations. He goes by the identity Recon 341. It says on his card he's an Army veteran, and he 3D prints these. You can see there he's got a website, but like I said, I found him on Etsy, and he also sells through eBay. I think these LAVs, which I'm really happy with their quality, as I recall, they were like $15 each. So they're certainly a very affordable thing. They're in HO scale, and he sells in N scale as well. So then if we go ahead and put some of them on here, I'd initially bought a couple, and then I checked the weight. I thought, we can actually fit 4 of them on the length of this rail car. And then when you do that, I don't know how well you can see it, the weight with that load now comes in at 7.2 ounces, which is certainly quite favorable. Now, also on the subject of weight, not the weight of our scale model, but the real world kind of weight considerations here. And you do have to, if you're trying to model something reasonably accurately, it can be a good idea to pay attention to it. And there are some markings on the model railroad car, and I don't know if we'll be able to see them here. I think we can. It says that the capacity is 130,000 pounds, the load limit is 135,000, and the light weight is 67,600. And if you look this stuff up on the internet, you find that on the rail car, in the real world and in the model world, the LTWT basically stands for lightweight, and that's the weight of the car when empty. The LDLMT is the load limit, which is the maximum weight of the lading the car can carry. And it can also have a CAPY, which is obviously capacity, the load carrying capacity. One source on the internet says the CAPY is no longer required. An article I saw in Trains Magazine one time said something that seemed kind of weird, that the load limit can sometimes exceed the capacity. I don't understand that. It doesn't necessarily make sense, but there we have it. The Marine Corps LAV-25, based on Wikipedia, there's a couple variants, one that's a little under 15 tons, another one that's a little over 15 tons. I'm not worried about which variant I have. I'm not concerned. So I'm basically saying these things are each 15 tons, which means that 4 of them would be 60 tons or 120,000 pounds. So it's reasonable for this flat car to carry 4 of these LAVs. A visit to the model railroad shop yesterday yielded some scale lumber from Northeast Scale Lumber. My idea that I had, without having fleshed it out totally, would be to use some of this 2 by 10 inch scale lumber to lay down a wood base on this particular flat car, which is obviously cobbling something together that, you know, might have existed in the real world, but I like the idea of laying that lumber down there to have the LAV sitting on that. So I've opened up this package of scale lumber from Northeastern Scale Lumber, and we'll take a look and see. I do like the idea of covering up that nice white surface there, and we can take a couple strips of this scale 2 by 10 and put it down in that spot and cover up that white, which was obviously intended for trailer on flat car service. I think that it's not a bad idea to have this wood. Well, it covers up the white, but also in the real world, it would have been typical for these military vehicles on a flat car to have dunnage and such able to be put down there. Oops, here comes a cat. Okay, go away, cat. Cats are always kind of hazardous around the model railroad world. In any event, I am going to put that wood down there. I'm going to have to experiment on some of the pieces of the wood to treat it. I know that some kind of thinned out black pigment might be good to weather this wood a little bit. So I think I'm going to go ahead and do some experiments there with what I've got on hand. So I've taken some of my basic black hobby paint, and I thinned it out basically probably about 51. I didn't make a precise measurement, and dip the brush in there, and we can see how that looks. And I think that does give it a much better look than the plain wood. It certainly looks grayer, like it has been weathered in the atmosphere, and the think of it as almost like a stain. It does kind of highlight some of the little dents and divots that seem to exist in this scale lumber, even as a starting point. So I'm going to go ahead and stain a couple of these planks and put them on the model just to see what it looks like overall. I've stained a few of those scale 2 by 10s, I think they were, yep, and put them on the car, and I've put a couple of those LAVs on there, in part because with the scale lumber being stained with that diluted black paint, it's wanting to curve a little bit. So in the meantime, while it dries, I've got the 2 vehicles sitting there, and I think you can get a little bit of an idea of what that's going to look like. And for perspective, here's a piece of that lumber that's not been stained. And obviously, well, I think that the stained lumber looks a lot better, a lot more realistic than the unstained, so we'll certainly go with that. So I was looking at my scale lumber placed on the flat car, and I think I generally liked it quite a bit. But I did notice one thing, that in particular right towards the center here, when I put the scale lumber on, there was this teeny tiny gap. It was about 2/100ths of an inch, less than about three scale inches of gap between that center, whatever that center is there. And you could just barely see a little bit of that underlying white show through. And I didn't think it would really be noticeable in operation on the layout, but if somebody looked down directly from above, they might notice it. So I went ahead and painted all of that white. I happen to have had on hand some of this apple barrel King's Gold, which I use, for touch-up. Probably have to do a little more touch-up on that. But I did paint all of that white yellow in the odd chance someone might notice that, that white showing through. Okay, so back to the workbench. Off camera, I cut these scale 2x10s into 12 scale foot lengths. I certainly figured that there wouldn't be an 80+ foot long strip of wood available, so I cut them into shorter lengths, and I applied some white glue and went ahead and stuck them down. I did that side off camera, and you can see what it looks like. So we've got the varying lengths with the joints staggered and the weathered looking wood, and I'm actually pleased with how that's turned out. And of course, with having painted that yellow in there, there's no spots where any of that old white ends up showing through in any spot. So I think that's pretty good. To apply the lumber to the car, I just used a brush to apply a little bit of Elmer's white glue, and then just carefully pressed each chunk of lumber down to the model. Well, let's see, now we've got our weathered 2x10 lumber down on the Flatcar, and I do like how that looks. I think it's going to be quite nice. And of course, in the end, we'll have our LAVs on there, and we'll make sure and have them tied down properly, of course, in a rather nice looking load. So that will complete the work for today. In the next phase of this project, we'll have to tie these vehicles down either with some cable or a chain, and probably put some wood dunnage around the wheels to help stabilize the load. So we'll get started that in the next day or so and get this project wrapped up. Thank you.